Back, you're watching The Globe here on SABC News Channel. I am Tsepiso Makwetla. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says new categories are on the horizon for travellers and those looking to work in the country. Speaking during the State of the Nation address on Thursday, Ramaphosa said the proposed dispensation is in a bid to make travel to South Africa a lot easier. President Ramaphosa has announced the government is also looking to improve the current visa system.
Ramaphosa says the visa application process will be changed but gave no timeline as to when this will be finalized. This includes the introduction of remote working and start-up visas. This is undoubtedly good news, most notably for the tourism sector, which took a knock over the past 2 years with thousands of jobs lost. Most recently, the detection of the Omicron variant in the country also contributed to the sector losing out on revenue during the festive season.
To attract skilled immigrants is the hallmark of a modern, thriving economy. We are therefore streamlining the modernizing of the visa application process to make it easier to travel to South Africa for tourism, for business, for study, or even for work. As we committed last year, the e-visa system has now been launched in 14 countries, including mega countries such as China, India, Kenya, and Nigeria.
In addition, President Ramaphosa also said during his SONA that new visa categories are on the horizon for travelers and those looking to work in the country as the visa system is being reviewed. The aim of this new visa system is also to invite more skilled labor from the international community, which would meet the country's needs and demands.
The revised critical skills list has now already been published for the first time since 2014, following the detailed technical work and extensive consultations with business and labor. The updated list reflects the skills that are in shortage today to ensure that our immigration policy matches the demands of our economy.
The process to revamp the country's visa system is led by Mavuso Msimang, who was the Home Affairs Department's Director General.
To talk a little bit more about this, Pieter Britz is the Managing Director at PM Immigration. He joins us now to talk a little bit more about this. Mr. Britz, a very good evening to you. Thanks once again for speaking to us. So government, through its Labour Department, says there is a gap in the understanding of the knowledge of services and programs that the employment of foreign nationals, especially with regards to the employment of foreign nationals in South Africa. I want to talk about this because this has been a hot button issue. We've seen it come up during electioneering campaigns over the last local government elections, but obviously this would be tied to the law. Visa applications, immigration says. Can you help us unravel what some of those gaps could possibly be?
Thank you, Tsepiso. Good evening to you and the listeners. It's a big thing to sit and unpack. It will take a bit of time, but I think on the global look, government and Home Affairs has taken the time of the past 8 years since the 2014 critical skills list was opened up to everybody, and obviously those critical skills have been made public and have been utilized. Now, in the past 8 years, we have looked at Home Affairs have looked at the critical skills and seen that those shortages and those gaps some have been filled, some are still vacant and in dire need in the country. So with the new 2022 critical skills list, there are some surprises that we have received from government and Home Affairs in the Gazette of those short skills that we feel in our industry should not be that short, but others have been taken off. I mean, for instance, there are no public health workers as a shortage on this critical skills list. So that was a bit of a surprise for us. But in a whole, any new structure or process that has to start or get launched will have some teething problems. So us in our industry, from PM Immigration side and other professional companies, we are engaging Home Affairs just to iron out the kinks and the teething phase that's about to follow.
But there often is a great deal of concentration on blue-collar workers as opposed to white-collar workers, because I think the assumption is that they have critical and rare skills. But there is a benchmarking certificate of recommendations with regards to both general and corporate work visas. For instance, a diligent search must be conducted for a prospective employer. I'm curious, what then is regarded as a diligent search? Because I mean, you could have a cursory look around and say, actually, I just think that Pieter here has what it takes, and because of that, I'm also going to give him a higher salary.
That's a very controversial question and process. I'm happy they asked that. Now, the benchmarking that you're talking about is for different categories. You do get a critical skills list for critical skills visa. Then what you're referring to now is a general work visa, which, as the work say, is not a critical person, but still somebody that is at least middle to higher level management, or somebody that is semi-skilled. Now, unfortunately, those category of people, they need to apply at the Department of Labor for a Department of Labor benchmarking certificate, which there is a huge process to run through. It's not as simple as your employer says, I think that you're the only one. We do one advert in the newspaper, and whoever comes back, we use those people, and that is that. Not the case at all. There is a long list of hoops that an employer and the employee has to run through. For a brief example, you need to apply at the Department of Labor to show that this position is vacant. You need to then show that you have advertised in the national newspaper. You need to show the shortlisting. You need to show the interview notes. You send that to Labor. The Department of Labor will then review that, and then 9 out of 10 times send delegates through to the company for the company to also run through an interview. You need to send through those interview notes again to the Department of Labor, and they will go through that as well. They will cross-reference and check it. And after all of those hoops are jumped through in the probably the following 3 months, plus minus, that the position is vacant, only then they will tell you that you may now apply for a visa. But they do not, as Labor will not give you an outcome. They will not tell you beforehand that this person, you qualify, you do not qualify. You're just told that the answer has been sent to Home Affairs and you may now apply for the visa. So it's kind of a blind application. That is a structure that is currently happening.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I actually want to understand the relationship between the Employment Services Act as well as the Immigration Act of 2002. I understand that they complement each other, but I also want to understand this within the context of the National Labour Migration Policy and Migration Management.
One would actually ideally think that both of them would actually complement each other, but there are discrepancies between the two sets of legislation. There are requirements on the one end for an employee to make sure that whenever he does want to recruit a foreign national, that certain things need to be in place, and that the employer himself needs to satisfy that this position, there's nobody else in South Africa to fill it, versus the legislation from the Department of Labor side does not say that, and the legislation from Home Affairs does not explicitly say that. They rely on the Department of Labor stating a diligent search needs to be done, and then the reply a lot we feel in the industry is given on a whim, the reply, because we found that the report state that somebody in the country might be eligible for the position, and then a position is closed. So yes, the legislations are not in unison. There are some discrepancies.
And then there's the issue of where there are so few quality jobs in this country, and contestation for those few jobs. There is the constitution that we have to rely on the rights of South Africans, but is there a sense that locals and foreign nationals are given the same legal status when applying for a job? And will this proposal of a quota, particularly for sectors that are a great contributor to the economy. Will that help? I'm just trying to see what is being envisaged here.
In my opinion, I think the quota structure would be legit and would be good in certain segments of employment. It would not be the best thing to do right through the bank, because not all positions would have the same benchmarking. I do also feel that by law, each and every person that does apply for a position must be treated equally, because I'm sure every employer is trying to find the best suited person for the position. I do feel when people do interviews, they look at that primarily, whether you be local or South African. But also the employer is also charged with the requirement that they may only employ 60% local and only 40% maybe foreign in each company. So sometimes you will probably find that that 60-40 split is something that companies suffer with, also industry dependent. In terms of, let's say, telecommunication companies, we know for sure your energy sectors, a lot of those are highly skilled personnel that have to be on a short-term basis to transfer skills to locals. And in some instances, the 60-40 is not perfectly attainable. But the long-term goal, I do think, is very good to have expert employees, foreign nationals, to transfer skills to local South Africans.
So, as I said, we seem to, and my fault as well, in concentrating a lot on the more regulated sectors. Now, government is saying it's going to look at the NLP in relation to small business intervention enforcement, so that it ensures, for instance, that where foreign nationals cannot be allocated business visas and amendments to the Small Business Act, it will limit foreign nationals establishing SMMEs and trading in some of the sectors of our economy. How will that be done, especially if people are undocumented and it is the informal sector?
That's unfortunate. Well, I think that is a good thing. There should be areas where economies should be concentrated and where people should be given, our South African people should be given more chance to do these structures. I do understand that what that legislation in the smaller SMEs are focusing on are the smaller and the rural areas where foreigners are doing good business. It's sad to say, but they are doing very well in those areas. And it would be good to have locals take over those positions if they can. But it's also very sad to see that you have to go to the level of legislation to kind of push these people out of those positions and force locals to take over those positions. The undocumented migrant that's just doing his business and laying low probably would go on trading. A lot of foreigners are actually born traders and people who are actually specialized in working, selling, and making things happen. So I do feel on the one hand, yes, it's good for locals to have more access to that and to actually have those positions and to try and make something there. But on the other hand, you have to ask yourself as well, why are these people thriving in those areas and currently locals are not?
All right, so, and I suppose government trying to remedy that by insisting that there should be foreign national to transfer skills to locals, and that the permits themselves will be limited to specific durations. Thank you so much for your insight. Pieter Britz, he's a managing director at PM Immigration, speaking to us about new regulations that government is looking at with regards to visas and, of course, the employment of foreigners.